Welcome to Eyes and Teeth, the podcast, which would not be here without the Royal Variety Performance or TV talent shows. And they were inspirations not just for a budding young ventriloquist wannabe in Basingstoke in 1987, but for thousands of comedy, variety and musical acts for nearly a century.
Good evening. They've given me the honour this year of introducing the Royal Variety Show. Not because I'm the oldest performer, just because I carry the most weight. This was brought home to me on the day of the show as I walked in the stage door. All the fans started screaming. One young teenager turned to her mate and said, "Oh, look, Elsie, it's the four Beatles trying to sneak in under one coat." But the Royal Variety Show is a big night for show business. It's a get-together of the cream of entertainers. And I was there too. Well, there's always a cloth amongst the cream, isn't there? But seriously though, folks, I know I'm speaking on behalf of the whole fantastic cast when I say it was a great honour for all of us to perform in front of Her Majesty the Queen Mother and Princess Margaret and the Earl of Snowdon in support of the wonderful work being done every year by the Variety Artists Benevolent Fund. As you read in the papers, the evening turned out to be a big success, and our producer, Mr. Delfont, really went overboard to keep it that way. Well, that's enough for me for the moment, so let's get on with the epic. If you'll fasten your seatbelts, we fly back to the Prince of Wales Theatre last Monday evening, just before the royal party arrived.
The impresario Bernard Delfont welcomes the Queen, Princess Anne and Prince Philip to the Royal Variety Performance at the London Palladium. Bernard Delfont introduces his mother, Mrs. Olga Vinogradsky, to Her Majesty. Purpose of the evening, to raise money for the Variety Artists Benevolent Fund, which is expected to benefit by about £40,000. The stars are presented: Andy LaRue, Des O'Connor, and Prince singer Mireille Mathieu. Frankie Howard is no newcomer to these occasions, nor is Harry Seacombe, and Tom Jones, heading the company of her musical male, the ever-young Ginger Rogers.
It's your hostess, Miranda Hart.
Please welcome your host for this evening, Mr. Michael McIntyre.
The Entertainment Artists Benevolent Fund is its name. And for over 80 years, it's cared for those performers, comics, singers, jugglers, clowns, and all, for whom the limelight has dimmed and the applause has faded, reaching out nationwide to bring them dignity and independence in their frail years, paying gas and electricity bills, paying for medical aid, for whatever is needed. And when residential care is called for, Brinsworth House has stood here since 1913 to provide a safe haven. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host for this evening, Peter Kay.
Ladies and gentlemen, by introducing to you the John Tiller Girl.
The Royal Variety Performance comes from the Dominion Theatre here in London, and we're thrilled that it's in the presence of Her Majesty the Queen and also His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh. All the proceeds from tonight are donated to the Entertainment Artists Benevolent Fund, of which Her Majesty the Queen is the patron.
Today's guest is not only related to the late and great Lord Bernard Delfont and Lou Grade, but he himself has made a huge impact behind the scenes, keeping the cogs of show business agencies thriving and the Royal Variety Charity and Brinsworth House the success they are today. I'm blessed to share laughter and drinks with today's guest within the Grand Order of Water Rats. In several lodges we frequent throughout each year getting together, my time in the Rats and performances in Brinsworth House means I have an opportunity to give back to the business I have chosen to get me through my lifetime. Because of that, I'm thankful to today's guest for looking out for entertainers by showcasing us on the Command Performance or placing certain members of the business in a safe haven via the Royal Variety Charity. Welcome to Eyes and Teeth, the world's greatest variety show, Companion Rat, Ian Freeman.
Good Lord. Hi, Steve. Lovely to be here.
It's really nice to have you on the final season of Eyes and Teeth. This podcast for me got me through all the lockdowns. I couldn't go out and be a ventriloquist. And so everyone come up with something to do, in that time, hopefully.
Well, I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed listening to all of them. They've been brilliant. Absolutely.
Oh, bless you. Oh, thank you. Well, you can listen to yourself pretty soon.
Oh, I'm not sure about that. We'll wait and see how it goes.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. I mean, it's to have a lot of entertainers from the 70s and 80s, and even talking to comedians and variety acts today that are still thriving. They're all out there on the cruise ships, Ian. So you know, for the Royal Variety performance, which we will talk about shortly, it is actually quite nice to have new acts to look up to, you know, and someone that could possibly be on your show one day. So it's, you know, so we'll talk about all that. I really love what you do and your history and what you're about. It's the knowledge that you've actually got and the experience that is where you are today is just incredible. So you're an honorary charity treasurer and trustee of the Royal Variety Charity.
That's right. Yes, I've been involved with the charity for 15, almost coming up 20 years now. And yeah, I'm the treasurer. I'm the honorary treasurer. I look after the money, make sure we have enough to keep our care home going in Twickenham, Brinsworth House, and also make sure that money's being directed in the right places to people who really need it. Because with a charity, you have to bear in mind it's not your money you're dealing with; it's other people's. So you have to be really very careful how you
handle
spend it.
that. Yes,
Yeah.
it's integral, really, for the Royal Variety performance to fund the Brinsworth House and for like the Grand Order of Water Rats to help fund in the Brinsworth House. It needs a lot. I mean, care homes and charities, you know, all around really do need the funding, don't we? Constantly. I mean, it's all year round. It's not just that one show that's going to do it. It's hard work.
That's right. I mean, we need, luckily, you know, the Royal Variety performance, because of the size of it and the actual the credibility it has within the industry and its popularity. It raises substantial sum, which enables us to keep the care home going. We've just undertaken a £3 million refurbishment of the home, which will eventually, when it's complete, which will be at the end of this year, will mean that all the rooms are en suite and that most modern facilities. And of course, with a charity care home, running that is different to running a commercial operation, a commercial care home, where we support people who are not necessarily able to afford the fees and so on.
Yeah, it is sad in a big way. It's wonderful in a way what Brinsworth does, but I mean, you see these fantastic performers and entertainers, and if in the day they didn't take out the pensions, I have a very small pension, but where do we go when the work stops? You know, like Ken Dodd, Bruce Forsyth, they worked up until they weren't here anymore, and if you haven't got that work, backup, it's difficult really if they never thought about that. We always thought the money and the work was going to be there as entertainers, you know, but Brinsworth gives you that hope, doesn't it?
That's right. But I mean, lockdown and COVID was a great leveler, really, because it made people think again, and the entertainment industry and the hospitality industry were all very badly affected by COVID, obviously, because people couldn't go out and entertain, theatres were shut, clubs were shut, cruises weren't taking place. So it's a very good point you've made about pensions. To any young entertainers out there listening, get a pension. I know it seems like it's a long time if you're 23 now, and it's a long time till you're 65, but by God, it comes on you quickly. I can tell you that for nothing.
It does, yeah. I'm halfway there, and it's my brother's talking about his pension in 5 years from now, and he's just turned 50. So it's worrying how quickly it surprises you. You know,
Sure.
but I'll look forward to my pension one day. But I don't want it yet. I want it to
look
be
forward
there.
to your pension. Maybe you could buy me a drink.
Well, I share things around. I don't mind that. But Ian Freeman, you're a journalist. You're the theatrical agent in the day.
Sure.
And who was on your books? I mean, you were working in the 70s
Well, I've had quite a sort of plural career, you'd call it these days. I started off, training to be a theatrical agent with what was then, I suppose, the family firm. London Management was a firm established by two of my uncles, Leslie Grade and Bernard Delfont, and they won't mean anything to anyone under 50, but they were sort of titans of the entertainment industry in the 40s, 50s, 60s. And so I started off there, as a trainee agent. I My boss was a guy called Cyril Berlin, who was a wonderful agent. And my ultimate boss was Billy Marsh, a legend in
Wow.
theatrical
Yes.
publicity. So I worked for Cyril, and we looked after Des O'Connor, Lonnie Donegan, Mickey and Griff, various other artists. And of course, in those days, we weren't just agents for entertainers. We also booked clubs. We had sole agency rights to a lot of clubs, and particularly the Bailey circuit and those. And we used to book artists into those clubs, not just our artists, but other people's.
Right. Fantastic.
I then went and set up on my own in the early 70s with a partner, a guy called Bob James, and we started a small agency where we looked after primarily, although the group had split up by then, Dave D and Dozy Beaky McIntitch, who were two separate entities by that time. And we looked after various artists, and it was a very successful little agency for 3 or 4 years. And I then moved on. So Des was great.
Yeah, Des O'Connor. I mean, I was talking just the other day to a wonderful comedian, and we were talking about when Jeffro used to go on the Des O'Connor show, and Des would launch people's careers. Like Andy Ford, Freddie Starr would always. I know Freddie Starr was the Royal Variety Performance was his overnight success, but Des would enhance that stardom of these comedians. He really loved helping out comedians, and Des himself was a great comedian and performer.
Well, that's the thing. You see, a lot of people don't realize that Des, I mean, aside of the singing, which was something he became better known for in the later years, and then, of course, the chat show, Des was actually a brilliant comedian. That's how he started, obviously, as a young comic, and he was very anxious to encourage young people, and particularly comedians, and help them along the way. And his chat show was, I mean, he just seemed to engender people with this sort of vitality that when they came on his show, he only had to say, "Hi, good evening. Now, what should we talk about?" And they'd just talk for 40 minutes and get huge laughs. So, but Des never tried to grab the spotlight for himself on his show. He always let his guests obviously do the talking, unlike some chat show hosts that one could name these days, made the guests the stars rather than himself.
Yeah, brilliant. I remember Des would just, if Joe Pasquale was on, he would just hand it over to him and let him entertain. Des would sit there and laugh and be entertained. So he was very generous in that way. But he commanded the audience, the stage every time, didn't he, Des?
Oh, absolutely. And he had a fantastic charm. He had a wonderful way with an audience. He could hold an audience in the palm of his hand like no other comedian I've seen. And he was generally adored mainly by ladies of a certain age, but he was certainly of his time the most popular host. He was a brilliant comedian, a great singer, unlike despite what Eric Morgan might tell you, he was an excellent singer, a good host, and a great comic, and very adaptable. He could pretty much lend himself to anything.
Ice and Tea. I saw Des in Panto with the wonderful Simmons brothers in the 90s, actually, at Woking.
Oh, right. The Simmons brothers are in their 90s. I thought so. I thought Keith knocking on a bit, to be honest.
So you remember the 1990s? I was a teenager then. So I used to go to all these stage doors, Ian. I used to go to frequent, Ken Dodd, the Grumbleweeds in Blackpool. And I used to just want to meet these people because I was absorbing all of the shows, the TV shows that were on in the 80s. And I think that was probably the best time for television and variety was still the 80s before it died out almost completely.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and I mean, it was, and you were quite right to do that because that's the way to learn and that's the way to get to understand the way the business works. And that's why you, without wanting to make your head any bigger than it already is, that's why you've become as successful and as competent and as entertaining as you are, is because you've picked up stuff from watching other people and understanding that they knew how the business worked and how to do stuff. I mean, we also handled at London Management a wonderful ventriloquist called Arthur Worsley, who you no doubt know,
of course.
with his dummy
Master.
Charlie. And you could learn a lot from watching people like certainly Worsley, because he had a certain style. I think all all vents, you can tell me if I'm wrong on this, I think all vents have their own certain style. Worsley's style was that he was completely poker faced. His face never moved. He very rarely spoke except to interject. The dummy did all the talking. And he never reacted or responded in any way. He just stared straight ahead. The dummy, as you know, would insult him, would try to get him to say something, but he never would.
Yeah, he would reply by saying yes, and then Charlie would go back and say, "Who's a little chatterbox then?" You know, it was just one word in 15 minutes.
Yes. Yes.
He was very popular. Ed Sullivan had him over there about 40 times, you know, on the Ed Sullivan show. He was the most popular ventriloquist from the UK over there. They loved it. They made him quite famous. He was on with the Beatles as well, I believe.
He was, absolutely, and he was very much in demand, Arthur. He worked all the time. In those days, you'd have obviously support acts in variety bills, and he was always like second top. You know, he closed the first half because of the appeal. Obviously, was as you know, is not you; it's the dummy. You know, it's the doll. It's that's the character. And,
he was a great character.
And he was.
Oh, conversational.
I never met Arthur, sadly, because he retired, and I worked with Ken Dodd. I met Ken Dodd at the Blackpool Grand Theatre in 1995 when I was 20. I worked at the Tower, and Ken told me Arthur, you know, lives around the corner, but he won't come out and see the shows. He won't meet you for dinner. He sadly became a recluse, and then he became quite ill. But so for 20 years, he gave it up. In the 81, I believe, was his
right about then.
Yeah. That was very sad. But he was wonderful. A lot of people looked up to him, and still today, people talk about Arthur very fondly. And I mentioned Arthur. I've got a lovely biography of Arthur in my book. I went up to Arthur's house in Blackpool. Probably about 15 years ago, I interviewed his son, Michael, and Arthur's wife, Audrey, who was in her 80s at that time. And she was beautiful. She was a dancer, and she spoke to my wife, Nina, while I was speaking to Arthur's son, Michael, and he would tell me the comedy side. They were talking dance, and we had a lovely homemade pie. But little Charlie Brown was sat in the living room on the couch, facing the TV. That it set that up for me. It was a beautiful moment, you know.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
it's slightly worrying, but very
yes.
Those of us who are not ventriloquists, it could be slightly worrying.
Yeah, I've got a shower mine actually. They're still in bed. I shower them after this. So there was a lovely moment actually when Audrey Worsley actually picked up Charlie Brown, and because she was a dancer, she wanted to show us a dance. She started to dance with Charlie around the living room, and she put a bit of music on. It was very magical. And
how lovely.
It was beautiful, but I felt like she had a piece of Arthur with her, and it was quite poignant. I was a bit emotional, but she was so happy when she was holding Charlie. And the family, Michael, even today, because we lost Audrey, bless her, but Michael still holds on to he won't let it go out of the family at all. So, and I don't blame him. It's such an amazing piece of history. Yeah. So it's lovely that you mentioned Arthur. You must have seen so many ventriloquists over the years.
Yes, loads. Over the years, we handled a few in the agency, but also we
Keith
saw
Harris, I believe, was on your.
Yeah, Keith.
Yes.
Keith Harris and Orville, and Senor Vences. I don't know.
Oh yes, the Spanish ventriloquist. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. He's okay. He's in the book. They're all in the book.
Lots of them, and of course, who was the? Oh God, who am I?
Neville King. Neville King was great, wasn't he?
Neville King was wonderful.
We'll save that for the book. But I want to talk more about you. I mean, your career has just gone on, and you've worked in so many big companies. It's all entertainment based. I mean, you do love the entertainment
I've always
business.
been entertainment based. I went, I sort of did a career change in my mid-20s because I'd had enough of agency and so on, but I wanted to stay in entertainment. So I went to learn. I mean, I think I was about 25, which is quite late to start training in a new job. Although these days it isn't, but in those days it was. But I went into an ad agency to learn about advertising and marketing, particularly in relation to the entertainment and business. And I ended up being account director on the agency's second biggest account, which was Paramount Pictures, UK. Um, we were grouped into a Paramount was in a consortium of 3 other film companies for distribution around the world, distributing their films: Universal, MGM, and Paramount. And I sort of learnt the advertising side that way. And cut a long story short, after about 3 years, I did actually join the consortium, which was called CIC, but it was Paramount was the main partner as director of publicity and advertising in the UK. So that was sort of my film business. So I stayed in the film industry at Paramount and then at EMI Films for quite some time, because it was an industry that I understood, and advertising and marketing was a discipline that I understood and worked well with.
Yes.
Of course, I mean, it was still entertainment, because in my job, I was responsible for looking after, publicity on movies. And so consequently, I was dealing with talent all the time. We were having, visits over here from big stars, John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John and John Wayne. And
at that time, it was Saturday Night Fever, Grease, great
Absolutely.
movies. Yeah.
And I worked with and dealt with, on a personal basis, some of the biggest stars in the world who were working for the 3 film companies that we were looking after. I had breakfast with John Wayne in at the Grosvenor House. Looked after Travolta on both movies over here. So I was working with talent all the time. It was a different kind of talent. Obviously, it was actors and actresses rather than variety entertainers. But I always kept that. I've always been pretty good at working with, looking after talent, artist liaison, if you like, or particularly, in PR and so on. So I was, working with great talent all the time.
The movies that you would have worked on at the time, they're ones that I grew up as a kid watching, and even Watership Down. What were the rabbits like when you worked with them?
Rabbits, they were great. They were quite quiet. They were usually busy. They made their own entertainment, as rabbits do tend to do.
They're always at it, aren't they?
Yeah, they were at it, but they were very good, very quiet. They didn't interfere, and they did as they were told, basically. They didn't talk back at you like some artists do.
There was a wonderful song written by Chas and Dave about them. I love that song.
Yes.
You also worked for First Leisure, and I believe First Leisure, when I worked at Blackpool Tower, I believe First Leisure owned that venue at that time.
Yes, I joined First Leisure in 1986, just after it became a public company, and we had I joined as a sort of in the marketing department, and we had a sort of rag bag of leisure assets in those days. We had Blackpool Tower and the piers. We had piers elsewhere also, Llandudno, Great Yarmouth, Eastbourne, the Tower, the Winter Gardens in Blackpool. We also had a chain of very, very successful nightclubs. At one stage, we had 40 or 50, I think, nightclubs. We had 10-pin bowling centres. In those days, we had squash clubs, snooker clubs, some steak restaurants, small chain of pubs. We were sort of, it was a general sort of load of leisure assets all lumped together, and it was highly successful. And it's sort of, because we went to the market and became a public company so that outside people could invest in us, we sort of made leisure sexy. It wasn't considered to be leisure, particularly, was not considered to be a proper business.
Yes.
We came along and showed people that there was a lot of money to be made if it was done right. Yeah, I was there for 14 years, ending up as head of corporate affairs, basically.
That's amazing.
Company's reputation.
Yes, I guess I was there in '95 in Blackpool, and I believe I was working for your company. I guess
you were indeed. Where were you, at the Tower, or where were you?
I was
North Pier?
I was a ventriloquist. No, I was actually on Blackpool Tower, the Hornpipe Galley. So
the Hornpipe Galley,
halfway up. Yeah, it's shut down.
Yeah, yes, you were working for us then. We owned it up until 1998. I think we sold it. So you would have been working for us then.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the work.
Well, that was one of our most successful years.
It was a great year. I loved it. I think it shut down
Yeah,
after
the
I left.
tower was a great asset. I mean, we were really anyone who owns the tower, and it's owned by the local authority now, I think. In fact, I know it is. Yes, they don't do the entertainment themselves, though they put that out to Merlin. But
Yes,
we were really when you have a building like Blackpool Tower, which is an icon, you're really only the custodian of it. It belongs to the people, belongs to the country, and I mean, we just looked after it, and it is still an amazing building, an amazing British icon.
it is. It's lovely. I'm involved in a museum that's going to be opening next March called Showtown.
Showtown. Yep.
Showtown, you know about Showtown.
Showtown,
And
yeah, do yeah. Spencer Phillips, who is one of the people running it, is a good friend of ours, and he's on our the Royal Variety Charity Committee.
yeah, they have one of my characters there on show in the ventriloquist section, which I believe they tried to get little Charlie Brown. And we'll talk about ventriloquists again, but I mean, it was the Showtown thing is very important for savor and variety. You know, it's Strictly Come Dancing, circus, magic, comedy, and everything that worked in Blackpool. It's an amazing museum. Very excited about that opening in 2024. So
Yes, yeah,
it's
looking
wonderful.
forward to that.
I knew you'd have a
Yeah,
connection with that as well. That's brilliant.
yeah.
And I think that will help Blackpool as well. I mean, it needs a little boost, I believe, in some parts.
It does. I mean, in the days when we owned all the assets there, we owned all three piers, the Winter Gardens, the Opera House, the Tower. There was a Super Bowl, Tenpin Bowl there. We had two hotels, the Clifton and the Savoy. We owned quite a lot of Blackpool, and we used to, make a lot of investment there. But I think the town suffered probably from not having so much investment over the last 10 or 15 years. But I think now it is definitely coming back into its own.
Yeah, that's brilliant to hear.
It's a great town. And of course, the entertainment capital, if you like. I mean, we always used to call it the Las Vegas of Britain, which of course it is. But...
Yes. We like to think it is. Ice and Tea. Can we talk about the Royal Variety programming? Now, you're on the committee for it. It's such a wonderful thing to still be going. But how do you program the Royal Variety show? Does it start
the show itself?
In January? Yeah.
Well, I mean, we start, the show's always is usually in November or December. And then, with a few weeks break, people start working on it again. I don't have as much input into the creative side as some of our other people. Our chairman, Charles Cooper, and our deputy chairman, Phil Dale, and our life president, Laurie Mansfield, are the main ones with the creative input. I just keep my eye on the money, but I'm obviously in touch with how things are done and how the show is put together. And we rely very much on the help of our broadcast partners at ITV, who are the ones that are responsible mainly for programming the show. And for in consultation with us, obviously, and we work together with them on it. It is our show, but it's theirs too, because they fund it and they provide the broadcast outlet for it, which of course is where a lot of the money is made, and we couldn't do it without them. We have a terrific relationship with ITV Studios, which is the production arm of ITV, and also with ITV Network, who are the people that actually show the show, and through their subsidiary Lifted Entertainment, who produce the Royal Variety Performance. We have a most amazing show every year, and I mean, it's just phenomenal amount of work involved with putting it together. And on the day and the week of rehearsals, which I always go to rehearsals during the previous week, I'm just amazed by the skill of the people involved with the show, not only the artists, obviously, but the production team. The skill is just amazing, and we couldn't be without them. It's absolutely stunning.
Yes, I remember it used to alternate between BBC and ITV, and is
Sure.
it because of the adverts it needs to be funded more in that way? Is that
Well,
why it's
I
now
think,
staying?
Yeah, I mean, we have a good relationship with all broadcasters because you never know when you might need them, and I mean, we are more than happy with ITV. We're thrilled with them. Obviously, it costs a broadcaster a considerable amount of money to stage a show like that, particularly now that we're sometimes in the Royal Albert Hall, which is a much bigger venue, which needs more people to work on it, more equipment, so it is an expensive operation. So I think when it comes to the money, I think the commercial companies probably are more in a position to look at that kind of funding. We'd love to work again with the BBC at a later stage, but as we speak, we're in a contract with ITV, and we are more than happy. We're thrilled to be with them. The people at ITV are just such great partners for us.
Brilliant to hear. It's always something to look forward to every year. It's so nice it's still going on, and so thank you and the committee for keeping the Royal Variety Performance in our homes, because it's such a wonderful thing to go to. I took my mum to it 2 years ago, so first person I bumped into actually at the Royal Albert Hall was past King Rat Dougie Brown, and he was in the foyer,
yes.
in the bar, and bless, we miss him. But what a wonderful show at the Albert. It was a good show that year.
Yeah, we were there again last year. It's a great venue for us. Obviously, it's bigger, so we can sell more tickets, which means we can make more money for the charity. It also means that we can. There's still a sort of a thing when you walk into the Albert Hall. There's still the wow factor when you actually just walk into the auditorium and just look around you. There's an amazing wow factor, and that's the sort of thing that lends itself quite nicely to the Royal Show, because that has a wow factor of its own. But the venue itself is spectacular, and we'd like to be back there as often as we can be. It's a brilliant place, but of course you have to book it a long time ahead because it's very busy.
Oh, contributional.
They used to bring over huge American stars, didn't they? Like 2 or 3, like Danny Kaye would come over. You just get the big stars. Do you feel like it's too much money to bring the big stars over now for a charity show? You're trying to raise money, so
it is a charity show. We're trying to raise money, and I mean, obviously, the big stars don't provide their services for nothing for the show, but people still have to be paid. Bands, dancers, other people who support the entertainers, or everyone else has to be paid. And I think that with a few exceptions, it's very difficult to think of anyone that we could bring over who would have that sort of star factor like Sammy Davis Jr. or Danny Kaye or Bob Hope, or the people we used to have in those days. It's difficult to think who we have. In the past had Bette Midler, we've had Lady Gaga, Barry Manilow. It's very difficult getting the people right, and then being able to make sure that it's going to be commercially viable.
Yeah, of course.
We also like to showcase, obviously, the best of British talent, because it's a British show based around the British royal family. So,
Yes, of course. It has to be that they have to be fans of who's on as well. And they have to, I guess, it has to be run by them. I know Her Majesty the Queen used to actually read the list, didn't she? I don't want that.
Oh, she did. Yeah, she always had she was always very interested in who was on. And I mean, now that the King and Queen consort, they've been to several shows. They're always very keen and very anxious to see who's on. And the Prince and Princess of Wales now, they have been to the show, I think, 4 times now, and they're always very interested in who's on, and also having some input into content there.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I hosted a show up in Thursford, the Christmas Spectacular, and it is what it says. It's a wonderful show. So I heard Kev Orkian just done the last 2 years.
Oh, we love Kev.
Yeah, we do. And I did four seasons at Thursford, but in 2010 we had at that time it was Prince William and Kate Middleton. That's what they were called. It was His Royal Highness Prince William, but they come to do a show. So that was my Royal Variety. I actually had that show. It was wonderful, but doing the lineup at the end as well. So I was imagining I was on the Royal Variety, but we got to speak to William and Kate, and they were so gracious and wanted to know about how I learned what I did. And sure. William, he's the man of the people, isn't he? He'll be a wonderful king.
Absolutely, he'll be a wonderful king, and they are such a charming couple. Such lovely people, so interested in the charity. William spent a long time, the last time he came, asking me about the finances of the charity, how we managed during the pandemic, and whether it was, how easy or hard it is to raise money and so on. And there's a genuine interest there in the work of the charity and in the show itself.
Yes, that's really nice to see. With the sort of searching for the acts, do you know that the process of do they still go to Edinburgh Festival or comedy festivals, or where do they find their acts these days?
Steve, I know
Yes.
what you're asking me. Don't worry, I'll tell them to come and see you, right?
No. This is generally for my listeners, because I know I've got a lot of people in the business. Where do they go to be seen for the Raw Variety Show? And when are they coming to see me? I open in Chiswick, by the way, in March.
TV has a talent executive who is responsible for sourcing and booking the artists for the show. This individual works a lot for ITV and for he's freelance, he works a lot for ITV and for other networks. And I think that's a question probably you'd have to ask him, but I know they do go to Edinburgh. Yeah, sure. And I know they
still use that. Yeah.
Yeah, and they do go around, and they're obviously watching what other TV channels are doing, people that are on other shows, and looking at who's upcoming and who's, what's going to be the next big thing, and looking to create stars, if you like,
Yes, I saw this wonderful show in 2020 in Blackpool at the Magic Convention, which only finished yesterday. And I assume they go to the Blackpool Convention because you get the best variety acts in the world. So yeah, they must have scouts going there to see.
Yeah, they do, and they have people. He has people around the world as well, because we have speciality acts, of course, from all over the world. From Germany, the last show we had a terrific magic act from Germany. Have people looking around, and of course we're also very lucky that we have the association with Britain's Got Talent through Simon Cowell, where we put the winner on the Royal Variety Performance, and exchange for which we get 15 pence, I think, from every phone call, every phone vote. So we obviously have the Britain's Got Talent winner of the time, which is often a speciality act. I'm just thinking back to people like John Courtney, and it's a great association to have, and we're very grateful to Simon and everyone at BGT.
I'm very proud to know that I've raised at least 15 pence for the charity. So I came fourth on my year, and that was, I'm celebrating 10 years since I did it. But yeah,
I remember you on it, and I for one was absolutely convinced that you were going to win, and
it was going that way
as well.
Yeah.
And what year was it? 2012.
2013. It was 10 years ago.
2013, because 2012 was the centenary of the Royal Variety Show, and that was the first time we're at the Albert Hall. The following year, 2013, we were at the Palladium.
Yes.
And I think we had William and Kate, and I clearly remember a member of the royal party, I won't say which one, saying that they were hoping, and these were his words, that the ventriloquist had won, but he didn't. Because obviously the show was held after the...
Would have been that year, yes, of course. Well, that's the reason I actually went for Britain's Got Talent, was because of the producer said you could win the show. Come on. So I actually auditioned at the Palladium, so I had my moment, and it was wonderful. I did it because it's part of the business. It's a wonderful thing to look forward to, and it's nice to joke about it, or I still joke about being on the show, but it's a great ending to mine, and it's nice to have that hope. I don't want to be on it because it would ruin the joke at the end of my show, Ian.
Which is, well, don't tell me, because no spoilers.
Yeah, I won't. So I'm going on tour in a couple of weeks' time, and I just love to do, what I do best. And thank you to you for promoting what we do as performers, because you've been one of the people to hold this entertainment industry together. So thank you, Ian, for what you do.
Well, it's something that needs doing, and people will always need to be entertained.
I want to thank you so much for being part of Eyes and Tea for Ian, and giving me some of the insight to the Royal Variety Charity and to your work as well.
Yeah, I mean, we very much rely on the public, to support the charity. We're at royalvarietycharity.org, if anyone wants to look at our website. We have Brinsworth House, our care home in Twickenham. in West London, which is a fabulous home for elderly and entertainers and other people from backstage as well. And it's been really great to be on this, Steve, and congratulations on your success and also the success of this podcast, because I know it's doing really well. And it's great to be a brother water rat with you as well.
Thank you so much. I hope you see you at Lodge in a couple of days' time.
And, I shall be there.
It is wonderful. And on this note, we're just about to wrap up. Be kind to your children, because it's them who choose which home you go into. Is that one in there? Or these days, be kind to your children, because they might write a book about you. That's another one. It's more topical. Ian Freeman, thanks for being on the show.
Steve Hewlett, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much.
Ice and Thanks to companion rat Ian Freeman for his valuable time talking today about a subject I am truly honoured to be a small part of, and that's Brinsworth House. To donate, support or find out more about the charity and Brinsworth House itself, take a look at www.royalvarietycharity.org. Today's quote comes from Giles Cooper, following the passing of Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth in 2022. On Sunday, a minute's silence was held to mourn the Queen's death ahead of her state funeral. Whilst being emotional and very respectful, I think in many ways it will be the greatest show on earth, with the military bands and parades. Us Brits put on a great show, and that will be seen around the world, and hopefully we will do her proud. The Royal Variety Show dates back to 1912, when King George V and Queen Mary agreed to attend a Royal Command performance at the Palace Theatre in London, in aid of a fund and its proposed plans to build an extension to its Brinsworth House home for elderly entertainers. A second royal show was performed in July 1919 and billed as a celebration of peace, after being postponed between 1914 and 1918 during the First World War. It became an annual event at the suggestion of George V in 1921, when the King decreed that the monarch or a senior member of the royal family would attend an annual performance in aid of Brinsworth House and the Royal Variety Charity, once a year thereafter. Speaking about the Queen's music taste, Giles Cooper said, "I think she was very generational in terms of taste. Theatre was her great love, particularly musicals. So of that generation, Showboat, Annie Get Your Gun, Oklahoma. I think in terms of songs, it's no secret that she loved Vera Lynn, The White Cliffs of Dover, Freddie Starr, Cheek to Cheek, but also in more recent times, Gary Barlow and Andrew Lloyd Webber's Sing with the Commonwealth Band and Military Wives Choir. She was also known in her younger years as a great dancer. She had great rhythm." Eyes and Teeth is written, produced and hosted by Steve Hewlett, vocals by Larissa, Lola and Nina Hewlett, additional vocals by Rich T. The Eyes and Teeth music and jingles are produced and performed by Kevin Dean. Join me on the next edition of Eyes and Teeth, when I'll be talking to variety legends of British show business, Des King and Cherry.